Chairman Kanjorski, Ranking Member Garrett, and members of the committee. As Congressman Perlmutter just said, my name is Peter J. Leveton. I live in Lakewood, Colorado, a Denver suburb in Congressman Perlmutter's 7th District. I am an unpaid co-chairman of the Agile Group LLC Investor Committee. Agile was a hedge fund manager based in Boulder, Colorado. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to testify on behalf of Agile's 205 investors, several hundred Ponzi Victims Coalition indirect investors from more than 20 states, and by extension, all Madoff indirect investors who filed more than 11,000 SIPC claims on or before the bar date of July 2. It is clear from the statements that the congressman made earlier in this hearing that you have a clear understanding of many of the issues, and I'm going to try not to belabor those. The indirect investors are not a homogeneous group. It includes farmers, doctors, teachers, lawyers, businessmen, entrepreneurs, and other hard-working Americans who have, over a period of years, diligently saved for their retirement. Many of us are your constituents. Many of us are now devastated financially and psychologically. Many of us have sold or trying to sell our homes just to obtain money to live on. Many of us are retired. Some indirect investors have had to beg for support from our siblings and our children. Discrimination is not a word that any of us in this room would use lightly. However, because only direct investors are considered SIPC customers, discrimination is exactly what indirect investors are facing. Clearly not Congress's intent when it passed SIPA and created SIPC in 1970. Pursuant to the current interpretation, direct investor victims who knowingly invested with Madoff have an opportunity to recoup up to $500,000 for each of their accounts. Indirect investors, many, maybe most of us, had never heard of Bernard L. Madoff until it was too late. We're not considered customers. We'll recoup zero. I ask you, where is the justice in that kind of an interpretation? Because the SEC has admitted extreme culpability in missing the warning signs of the Madoff scam and others, and because the IRS essentially endorsed Madoff in 2004 by naming his firm as a non-bank custodian of IRAs and other tax-deferred retirement accounts, we believe that Congress has a duty to ensure that equal SIPC relief be provided to all victims, not just some victims, as is currently the case. The concepts outlined in the Maffei-Ellison Amendment would be a wonderful solution if it were expanded to include all indirect investors. Unfortunately, it addresses only ERISA plan victims and excludes thousands of other indirect victims, including those in self-funded retirement plans such as IRAs. I ask you again, where is the justice in that kind of an approach? We see no moral basis for Congress to amend SIPA to provide customer status to a relatively small special interest group of indirect investors in ERISA plans and exclude all other indirect investors. We, indirect investors, lost our savings to the same fraudulent Ponzi scheme, suffered the same financial devastation as the ERISA plan members and the direct investors. We firmly believe that Congress should end this discrimination, not perpetuate it, as the present draft of the Maffei-Ellison Amendment would do if passed as is. We urge Congress to enact legislation which clearly defines SIPA customers, as all investors who place their money in SIPA-protected Ponzi scheme operations. With regard to the proposed clawback amendment, we endorse an amendment that prohibits clawbacks from investors who withdrew their money in good faith and can prove that. With regard to the 60-day payment amendment, we agree that SIPC payments should be based on the customer's account balance as of their last statement, again assuming that they did not know and had no reason to believe that the Madoff operation or other Ponzi schemes were fraudulent operations. Regardless of what processing period is determined to be reasonable, we suggest that strict parameters and guidelines be established and that SIPC be required to and be held accountable for meeting those standards and guidelines. In closing, I suggest that this could happen to you, and Congressman Perlmutter mentioned that it did happen to one of the Agile investors who is a previous member of Congress. We look to you and your colleagues to carry out Congress's original intent to protect all investors when it enacted SIPA and to help us recover a portion of our tax-deferred retirement account losses. Thank you again for the opportunity to present these matters. I would be pleased to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you.